All right, guys, welcome to the Modern Flow podcast, where every conversation is an opportunity to learn, heal, grow, and discover a new perspective. I'm your host, Samnang Man, and the mission of this podcast is simple: to elevate the collective through meaningful conversation. Each episode features inspiring people from all walks of life who share their stories, lessons, challenges, and wisdom. These aren't scripted interviews or polished performances. They're authentic conversation designed to spark curiosity, expand awareness, and remind us that we all have something to learn from one another. Whether you're seeking a fresh perspective, practical wisdom, or a simple conversation that stays with you long after it ends, you're in the right place. Thank you for spending time with us. And I truly believe that one conversation can change everything. Now, let's get ready to flow. Welcome, guys, to the first episode of season 4. This is the premiere, and I have none other than the original host, two hosts of the Modern Flow podcast. Just a quick introduction. I'll give everyone. This is Danny Murawinski. When we first started the podcast, it was named FIFO, short for Figure the Fuck Out. And that's what we did. And paying homage to what we did, I think about a year and a half or 2 years ago. I believe that's the approximate how long ago it was. We hopped on now in the morning and just said, let's do it. So paying homage to what we did originally. But the podcast, still the same at its core. It's called the Modern Flow Podcast now. A couple of iterations. It was Figure the Fuck Out, Flow in, Flow out, and then Modern Flow Podcast to what it is today. But the mission of the podcast is to elevate the collective through meaningful conversations. And we also got another tagline, or we got a tagline as well too. So one conversation can change everything. So that's some of the awesome new updates with the Modern Flow Podcast. And I want to bring back the OG, the original, the one and only Danny Murawinski. Please catch us up with what you've been doing in your personal life, your professional life, and reintroduce yourself. Or if you want to retell the story, we'd love to hear it.
Dude, first off, thanks for the intro, man. And has it been 2 years? Is it really because it feels like it was just literally yesterday when
It goes fast. I think it was maybe a year and a half when we first started.
Year and a half, man. Even so,
Maybe. Yeah.
It's crazy, dude. I mean, it was honestly it was such a cool start to it, and it opened up so many new things for me too. But it was just like a conversation on social media of hey, man, like what you're posting, and then it was I don't even know how we came to the concept of a pod. I think it was just hey, let's just catch up. And I was like, should we record it and just publish it as a podcast? It's yeah, let's do it. And it was literally that simple. And the next day, we hopped on a Zoom and just figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for hopping on a phone call. It was an idea. I was at a time in my life where I needed some healing, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on my podcast and things that I want to change. It was a form for me to kind of just express myself. Originally, when I was I was divorced, and I just needed to find something to do. I started talking on my social media, and I had a YouTube channel prior, but I did longer vlogs, maybe 10, 15-minute vlogs. But I felt like I had a lot more things to say and get off my chest. And when you came along, it was just kind of an easy, natural, organic. The word I like to describe the podcast is authentic. The people that are going to be on the season, there's a lot of interest already. And it's just, I mean, say that the reason for the success, I believe, is just the consistency in my social media. I'm not going viral with anything, but I have been extremely consistent with whether it be posting my creative side, my personal side, professional side, or whatever. It's just being consistent. And that's where I felt like the success of this podcast is going to be. The guests I've been speaking to are so interesting. And I'm interested in learning more about them. But I'm sure the audience is very interested in learning more about where you're at, Danny, because they see me on my social media. My social media is going to be dedicated to myself, but the podcast is going to be dedicated more to the guests. So I'm going to be focusing on uh, their experiences, their wisdom, but share since the last time we've recorded what 27 episodes or 28 episodes before you went off and split on you made your own podcast. And then me, and also in between, I did get to see Danny in person, speak in person too, which that's an experience we definitely need to talk about in this podcast. But please catch us up.
Yeah, man. I mean, a lot's happened. I like I'm even trying to rack my brain like where I was, but I think at the time we started recording, it's funny because like chronologically, I think in terms of like where I was in my business, that typically is like my best timestamps, and then like the rest of my world kind of follows around it. But I think at that time, like I was about a year and a half or so into starting my own thing with Exit Built, and which for those that don't know, it's a digital marketing services company, right? So building websites, managing SEO, all that type of stuff. And I was like, like any early on entrepreneur, I struggled. And at that particular time, I just remember like I had just started like having like a payroll. And I think my payroll at the time was like around $6,000, $8,000 a month. And I was like scraping by every month to like figure out how I was going to pay $6,000. And at that time I had started making some introductions, and I actually love your tagline of like one conversation can change everything, because it's so true. I had a conversation with an amazing individual who's now one of my business partners and mentors. But I had a conversation with him. He notably unicorned the first business out of Chicago. So what that means for those that don't know, like he took it public, they got over $1 billion valuation, and they exited. And he's got this whole passion to help young entrepreneurs. So I met him through my mother-in-law, and we had one conversation, and next thing you know, I started doing work for the organization. It's called ISSA. And then they ended up taking a minority stake inside of Exit Built. And that was right around the time that I realized like, okay, I had to step away and keep focused on things that supported the business. So I did start Just Be Humans, which was a podcast that I did. I think I only did like 10 episodes. So you want to talk about consistency? Like I was consistent for 10 episodes and then I just dropped off. And I don't know, I might go back to it, but
You're good though, right?
yeah, I mean, it was, dude, like I learned something in this process of consistency, which is you got to have the right why, right? And you've probably heard people talk about that all the time, but like my why was all over the place. It was everything from, I wanted to get the views or get the attention. And all of it really boiled back down to this problem that I had in my business, which was I got to figure out how to make payroll, and I got to pay for myself, and I got to pay for my family. And so I started focusing heavily on things that could generate revenue, and that wasn't sustainable. Even in the Just Be Humans podcast, that was literally designed to be a lead generation system for my business. So after a certain period of time, you just kind of fizzle out on it because it's not your soul, right? Like it's not who you are as a human being. So fast forward, took the minority stake, and then we grew slowly and organically. And we didn't really market ourselves. In fact, we just started marketing Exit Build as an organization and company this year, which is crazy to think about. Like
Nice.
we're a marketing
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man.
A lot of work, man. That's an entrepreneurship, like advanced level.
I don't know how advanced that you would consider me now, but it was a process, So fast forward to today, and then we can talk about like all the hows if you want. But now Exit Build is a standalone organization. I actually hired a CEO to run the whole thing. It's grown by leaps and bounds. We've cleared over $1 million in cash collected now, which is pretty amazing. Our monthly revenues are upwards of 60,000 plus, and we're growing. By next year, we're already on track. This year, we've already cleared about $500,000. I think we have a potential to clear $1 million this year. Definitely, we will clear $1 million by next year. But all of that allowed me to start Allura Labs, which is my second business that I'm the CEO of, that I run. So like in the business world, things have really started to pan out. And that, to your point, was consistency. It was showing up when, like the chips are stacked against me. It was showing up when I went a month or two without making payroll and still figured out how to keep the team going and keep them motivated and find more customers and clients until we got some consistency and stability within the business. But that was my business world. And meanwhile, in my personal world, my wife and I just had our fourth child. So I finally have a daughter. Right? Thanks, bro.
Girl dad.
Yeah, dude. That's a
3
whole
boys and then now a girl, right?
That's so okay. I'm a part of the girl dad club. It's amazing. Amazing.
It's good that she's the youngest one too, so the boys or the brothers could watch out.
Yeah. Yeah, I got she has 3 older brothers, which is also awesome because like the 3 boys, my sons are 3, 5, and 8, and it's just like constant fighting in World War III in our house. So when we had her, my daughter's name is Neve. We had Neve. Neve, yeah. It's Italian for snow. Nice. So, but when we had Neve, my 3 boys like really have congregated around her. My oldest son he's picking up around the house. He started doing dishes. He started vacuuming, like things that like we've always asked of him that he always refused to do. And like now he's just like, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll help it out if it helps Neve. And like it's pretty cool. So, but yeah, so the family's grown. We started world schooling last year. We went to Italy for 3 months with the whole family. That's actually where, go figure, we conceived Neve, ironically, in Italy. And then this year we're going to Tanzania for a month here. Like we leave in like 2 weeks to start our journey to Tanzania. So it's just been a wild ride, man. And kind of where we're at, but it's I don't know. I know I'm talking all over the place, so I'll let you reel me back in.
No, that's good. Personal, professional, life, and I something that was like interesting to me what you said about when you did your podcast. That just kind of like you always say, let's pull the thread on this. When you were building your podcast, Just Be Humans, and we kind of like branched off. You said your soul wasn't involved. What does that look like now? What does like soul work involve for you?
So you have to, like, for me, that's a good question. And like, I think it's not something that like it's easily defined, right? Like I don't think, at least for me, it wasn't like I felt like my soul was in it, right? Like, oh, you always feel like your soul's inside of something. But then you hit a point where you don't like showing up for it. You don't want to do it. And it's that weird thing where it's like, you're like, why don't I want to do this? Why don't I want to, like, this is my thing. I thought I loved this thing. I thought I wanted to do this. And you have to go deep and ask yourself some serious questions. Like, why am I doing this? Why? What is the point of this?
That's the question why everything started. It was like, why do we want to start a podcast? Why do we want to start the journey?
Yep. And I the problem, I think, Samnang, for me at least, was like, it was too inward. It was too self-serving. And I realized, like, there's you start in like this survival space, which I was living in for so long. And the survival was like, making sure I can keep my house. We almost faced foreclosure. For like a year, I almost faced foreclosure, like month over month over month. And I just figured out a system in which I was able to scrape by and keep the house with a major deferred payment. But, we were surviving with that. We weren't able to afford diapers at one point, like, I was in such a survival mode in my personal life, not to mention My wife and I, even though we have an amazing relationship and she's awesome, we were also struggling in our relationship. So like we realized like there was a lot of inefficiencies inside of me, and like I had built up a ton of past trauma on her because prior to me starting Exit Build, I was an executive for a couple of different tech firms, and I realized I hated my life, and I turned to booze heavily. And I
Yeah.
mean, at one point I was drinking like 30 shots a day. I was a functional drunk, but it caused so much drama and trauma to my wife during that time that it took us all of these past like 3-4 years of healing that trauma, and like me having to step up and show up in a better way. So I say all that because when you ask about like how did I get to like where do I feel like my soul work is, you have to peel all the layers off of you first. You got to face all your demons. You got to face all your skeletons. Like why did I hate my reality? I had a great life with my kids and I had a high paying job. Like a lot of people would have killed for that. And what was it about it? And it was the fact that I was building someone else's reality that I didn't really love. It was, why was I struggling at home? And it's because I wouldn't consciously tell you this at the time, but I'm now looking back, like I wasn't showing up for my wife as the man that she wanted, like I was come home and straight to the booze and then
Yeah.
check out by like 10 o'clock at night because I was already fucking drunk. And, like I wasn't there for the kids. And so like all these little things start stacking up, and you realize like, man, I'm not a good man. Like at least I felt like that.
Yeah.
So as I sobered up and started the podcast and started growing the business part, I had fixed the alcohol thing, but there's a half-life of all these other things that I created so much damage for that I still had to show up for. So my wife and I did a marriage therapy thing, which was like all about masculine, feminine polarity. And it really taught me a lot about what it means to be the man in the relationship, like what masculine leadership is, what
Yeah.
soft femininity is, because that's the dynamic that works for us. So I had to kind of relearn how to be a man in that process, and then also being there to help guide my children on how to be a better man. So all of that was happening in the background of me trying to build this business. And as I'm like trying to self-serve and trying to create this lead generation system to drive more business, I had to stop focusing on what was serving me directly, and I had to start focusing more on what was serving me outwardly. So I realized like healing my relationship with my wife and my children was step one of the process. Like, and that just required me to show up as the man that I said I would be every single day, no matter how I felt, no matter
Yeah.
how much I struggled. And then all of a sudden I built confidence on that. And I started building up proof of who I was through that, which ultimately opened up my capacity for business. And I realized that instead of worrying about my bottom dollar in business, which I was so concerned with, I started worrying more about like, what impact were we actually making on these companies? Were we actually helping them in a bigger way? And my whole mantra of doing business with people changed. I turned down business. I turned down a $10 million contract,
Yeah.
2
I saw
million a
that.
year for 5 years.
You spoke about that. Can you speak a little bit about why you did that? Because you could compare that. It was like you're not selling your soul for something, right? I think you said that on your social media.
Yeah, I mean it was a crazy thing. Like I got hired to do a consulting thing where they paid me $30,000 for me to come out there for 2 weeks to just rip apart every piece of the business. So we did, and I met with all 60 of the employees. Like we looked at everything, and at the end of the day, they wanted me and Exit Built to take over their entire marketing department. They wanted to fire basically everybody and employ us, and we were going to acquire their entire marketing budget, which is why it came to that number. And I actually met with my mentor at the time, and I was like, what do you think? Like, this seems like a no-brainer. And he was like, you're going to need you're going to have HR issues because we are going to inherit some of their employees. You are going to need to, like, basically I would have created a glorified job. I would have been a high paying job, but it would have been a glorified job within this business, which isn't going to help me grow in the way that I want. And that's when I realized, like, okay, there's this money thing where it would be great to instantly turn this business to 2 million plus per year. But then there's, what are we actually doing and how are we doing? And is that what I originally set out to do? And the answer was no. Like, I didn't set out to acquire entire marketing organizations and be their entire marketing arm. I built a skill set around technical marketing, around tracking, around targeting, around messaging. Like those are the kind of core components that we did, not all this other stuff. So long story short, when push came to shove and we got down to the wire, they basically were like, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to take this? And we said no. And we stuck with the original contract and we just managed all their web development work. And since then, the company's figured it out, and they've made their fires and hires and things like that, but they're starting to trend in the right direction. But yeah, that was a money thing. I would have taken it for money. I wouldn't have taken it because it was what I felt like I was called to do.
Yeah.
And that was a big eye opener for me in terms of that, again, that soul work.
Yeah. That's a important piece of experience that you just shared there. And one thing I do want to always applaud you, Danny, is your vulnerable, your vulnerability and ability to explain and present things in a way where you did the work. It sounds like you did a lot of inner work, inner healing, and be able to explain it in a way where it is a masculine thing that you just did there. And we are starting to change the narrative on what masculinity is. There's things that, like, when I talk to people, I want to have people hear the conversations that we have between each other. Podcast is this unique dynamic of intimate conversation, but we know that people are going to listen to it. So you can be honest and vulnerable about it. And I've had those conversations, and I'm glad to have you on here and kind of help lead in that aspect of showing up for your family and even talking about your professional life, because sometimes we don't talk about our professional lives. The generation before us, we kept LinkedIn is LinkedIn. It's there's nothing personal about it. But now we're starting to talk more about like how that affects us personally, our work, our jobs, and how you explain it. That I'm sure the audience would resonate or appreciate the story of the struggles behind everything. Let's talk about this a little bit. You talked a little bit about how what it means to be masculine and feminine energy. You're an entrepreneur, you're a dad, you're busy, I'm busy, like everybody here. We're regular people, that have regular day jobs and stuff. So how do you bring that into your day-to-day life,
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, one of the things that I learned is honestly, well, I don't mind being open and vulnerable, but I think one of the things that men could probably relate to the most in this, and that at least the thing that aha'd me, was honestly sex. And what I realized was when I quit drinking, so alcohol was my means to escape my reality, right? After alcohol was out of the picture, I didn't lose the need to escape my reality as I was still struggling in it. So what I turned to, and it was sex. Now, luckily for me, it was sex with my wife. I didn't have any other things outside of her. I just wanted more sex with her. And what I realized is I became needy in that department with her, where I felt like, here's a good example. I took the family to Italy, right? And this is probably, I don't know if my wife will love me telling this story or not, but whatever, I don't care. So she knows who I am, and I'm an open book. But when we took the family to Italy, within the first 2 weeks, I looked at her and I was like, what, you're not going to put on a sexy outfit for me? You're not going to give me a little dance? Where's my reward for what I did for the family? And she looked at me in kind of disgust. Like, what? Like, you want me to do what? Like, and it was a big eye opener for me, Samnang, because like we don't think of it like that as men. Like we think like, okay, well, if I'm the provider and I bring all this other stuff, my woman should just, she should naturally take care of my needs on that. And there is some dynamic to that. But what I realized in that department was I became needy in that because it was my still means to escape my reality. And that was a big aha for me in terms of masculine leadership, because when does a woman, and it was about women's desire, it was like what I really learned, right? Because I didn't feel desired by my wife. Like we had plenty of sex. Obviously, we just had a fourth kid. We were definitely active, and like, we've always been active, but we always kind of struggled in that world. And what I realized is that I was not a desirable man. It wasn't that she didn't desire me. She did desire me, but she desired something bigger than I was. And I I tried to force the desire, like, oh, like, oh, she would make comments like, oh, I always think it's sexy when you do yard work or clean up around the house, or you're present with the kids. So then I would like systematically throughout my day be like, okay, I'm going to do the yard work, I'm going to do the dishes, I'm going to go put the kids to bed, and then after I do all
You're
that, I'm going
gaming
to
the
go to her.
system. It's called
Yeah,
gaming.
exactly. And then I'm like, did you see what I did? Like, huh? Like now? And
Nobody knows.
and
You
she's
guys
like,
don't
what are
know.
you talking? No, I'm not turned on by you telling me about the things that you did. So it was like, that was honestly probably the thing that drove it the most in terms of understanding what it meant. And to me, what it ended up becoming was you don't, it's an implied thing that we need the physical attention, right? Like we're all human beings and we all need that physical connection. But when you are deserving of it, or not even deserving of it, but when you are desired in that department, you're not focused on that. You're focused on doing more, like expanding more. Your capacity grows, being able to hold a safe space for her to just cry, being able to be present with the kids without any expectation on the back end. And then all of a sudden you become a lot more desirable. And that was probably the bigger aha moment for me, is when I switched from being needy in that department, being entitled in that department, expecting her to perform, making it a performative thing because I've done X, Y, or Z, to no, I don't need it like that anymore. And it was a way of like, the further I grounded inside of my reality, the further I grounded inside of my family, everything that I've done and built, the less I put it up on a pedestal, and the more she naturally wanted to come and be physical with me. And so that, I think, was like my bigger aha. And so if I were to like boil it down, like what is masculine leadership, I think it's a capacity. I think
Capacity.
it's all about capacity. Like what's your capacity to suffer while maintaining your cool? How, like, your capacity for not losing your temper, your capacity for um, guiding in the right way. Sometimes it requires you to just go, like often like in the solution space with women, at least with my wife, I've learned this, like she'll come to me with a laundry list of complaints and problems and things that she's struggling with. And I used to enter into solutioning mode with her, where I would go, we'll just fix this, 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 this. That's not what
Really
she
don't.
needs. She needs someone to just offload all of that onto. And you have, as the man, have to have that capacity to just hold it, to hear all of it, to hear her tell you that the sky's falling, to hear her tell you why she's scared, her anxiety, all the other stuff. You just have to go, yep, I got you, and hold it. And then you take that information and you just execute to solve it. Not by telling her what you're going to do, not by telling her what she needs to do, but by you showing up in a different way. And that to me is what kind of masculine leadership is in the relationship. And the goal is to make it to, the goal is one, to become, like, I got this tattooed on my wrist, I don't know if you can see this or not, but sovereign, right?
Top.
To become sovereign within yourself, not seeking outward validation. The sex thing was outward validation for me. Reaching out to her and like telling her my troubles and things like that, I needed to feel validated that I felt a certain way. And so being able to be like, you know what, no, like I have these thoughts, I feel this way, and that's all I need. Like, that's becoming sovereign in your path. And that ultimately allows her to soften up into her beautiful feminine, where she takes over in the nurture department. She wants to nurture more. And so you kind of have to keep that dynamic,
A lot
where
of energies.
yeah,
I've been spending a lot of
it's all
energies.
energy.
It's all energies. I mean, this podcast is energy, right? The conversations that we have, it's bouncing back and forth and uh, working around with what we have and masculine and feminine energy. I love the way you explained it. Uh, there's one thing that you did say that stuck out to me, but I also want to kind of expand on it a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next conversation. But I'm really digging it. Capacity to suffer. Okay, there's something that I think there's this fine line between toxic masculinity and like healthy masculinity and suffering. Everybody knows who he is, David Goggins, right? He's out there. He's great at what he does, but there could be too much masculinity where at a point where like men are trying to like kind of like redefine themselves, their era, and do their healing. But suffering, when is it toxic?
Yeah. I think when you get into that like alpha bro space, it becomes toxic, right? And I think like anything, when you start to explore this realm, especially as a man in your 30s, and if you have a family or a woman and everything else, and you realize that you're trying to become a better man, and you realize you're trying to enter into this healthy masculine space, you're naturally going to tip the scale on, you're going to push it beyond what healthy is, right? And I think I did too.
Yeah,
And I think it's it's the alpha bro mentality. You know, it's there's Andrew Tate's another one. You mentioned
yeah,
Goggins. Andrew Tate, you know, I think he's got a lot of really great messaging, but Andrew Tate has also got a lot of that toxic masculinity where he takes it over the top. And it's done by design, of course, because he's just trying
yeah,
to garner more attention and stay relevant. But I think that there's like in practice, it's kind of like what I experienced. Like I was going through a lot. Like we did there's actually a guy called Jake Woodard. I highly recommend people take a look at it. This is an interesting subject. We did his course through Instagram. Him and his wife, Melissa, they ran Relationship Revival. I think it was like an 8-week program that me and my wife did, all about this polarities, right? Like masculine, feminine polarity. We did that earlier last year. I want to say it was like March of last year. And then we went to Italy in September. And I think a good example of what toxic masculinity is my story of like when we got to Italy and I'm like, where's the outfit? Like, where's like, you know, why aren't you like celebrating, like, and give me your body kind of thing? That's the level of toxic masculinity. Like, it's doing things with an expectation of a performance. That's where it tips the scale over to toxic masculinity, or being so alpha that you don't have the capacity to also be soft, right? Like one of my favorite quotes about like what strong masculine leadership is that you should be able to slit someone's throat and hug your child within the same hour, right?
yeah,
Like it's the idea that yes, you can stand up and fight, but you keep a cool, calm demeanor through the process. And your emotions as a man isn't going bing, 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 bing. You're not hitting highs, lows, highs, lows, highs, lows. You're staying very calm and sovereign in the emotional space. And I think like the more you level out your emotions, the more you hit healthy masculinity, and you don't get triggered. You don't blow up. You don't snap.
yeah,
Um, that to me is kind of where you have to find yourself. And that was something that was a big struggle for me, because anybody that's known me has known that I've been very emotional growing up. You know, like Italian family, we got into a fight, we screamed our heads off at each other and then like hugged each other right after it. And that's just not a healthy position to be in. You know, it's not trying to force your will upon others. It's being able to express who you are, but allow others to also disagree or have different opinions, and not let it get you so triggered that you snap or blow up or try to force it.
yeah,
I don't know if that helps answer the question or not, but to me, that's kind of my journey of toxic
yeah.
versus healthy.
That helps, man. I think, I mean, there's a conversation I had, especially for men out there right now. And I do want to add a little bit to the conversation, capacity to suffer, because I've dealt with it personally. And for me, like using like David Goggins, physical exercise as something that has kind of like helped heal my nervous system, for like being in a calm masculine energy. And that's where I saw a lot of where um, I took my physical training out into like my relationships and my work, to kind of help keep my nervous system down and bring that masculine energy. Masculine energy to me is very calm. Like you
Yeah.
said, that what you said, like you're able to love your kid, you're able to show empathy and hold space for people, but then you're also able to like choke a motherfucker out if they need to, break some shins. But I mean, it is a warrior mindset, and that's kind of where the toxic and the healthy um kind of goes a hand. But having that healthy side, exercising, and then be able to balance it out with like holding and snuggling a baby and kissing them and showing that loving side, that's a very healthy a man to me. And I appreciate you sharing that. um but yeah, the next thing I want to talk about is on 4th of July. You had a great post. I love it, by the way. If anybody doesn't follow Danny on social media, I'll make sure to I have his social media tags. But he's a marketer, and talked about freedom of speech. And this podcast, it's us talking authentic. We have different political viewpoints. We have different lives that we've grown up with. We did go to the same high school together, but we also didn't know each other that much in high school. So freedom of speech and how you see like the next wave of like social media, because I can see there's a big shift. There's none of this fake guru stuff. I think a lot of people are waking up to a lot of the propaganda. Um, Tell me your viewpoint on that, on social media, how it affects or like society right now, where we're at.
Yeah, I think one we've been in the information era now for a quarter of a century, like 25 years. We've had the internet and information coming to us at our fingertips. And I think what's happened over these last 25 years, social media still is fairly young. It's only been around for about 10, 15 years now. And in the process, people started to, it started more as like a really a way to find and meet people and girls and things like that. And then it's grown into like entertainment, and then it's grown into, politics. It's got all these other facets to it. And I think in terms of like freedom of speech, and like when you reference that post, I think there's a lot of people that are scared. I think there's a lot of people. Let me put it this way. I'm a big believer that every human being on this planet has a story worth sharing. And I'm also a believer that there are tons of people out there begging to hear your story. Like one of my favorite quotes of all time, and if you follow me, you'll hear me say it a bunch, is that we all stand on someone else's mountain. And when you're on top of that mountain, it's beholden to you to share your story, because it's essentially you reaching your arm out to other people trying to climb your same exact mountain. And that means that what you believe matters. And there are other people that resonate with your belief. And there's, of course, other people that don't agree with you. And that's just as okay. In the terms of America, like, dude, it's funny. I've been thinking about this one for a long time, but this country was founded on division. We talk about unity, 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 unity. What is democracy? It's literally the structure of division. It's the ability for you to have opposing viewpoints and vote for something, and then let the majority of the vote guide the ship, right? But it's not built on unity. If anything, a monarchy is built more on unity, right? Because that's from a top-down perspective. This is what you're going to do. Comply or die. Like that's more of like trying to unify. Communism is founded on unity. Democracy is founded on division. And I think we get that twisted in America. And I think that there's this Like the reason why I share what I share and the way that I share is not to convince people to believe something that they don't believe. That's not it at all. I share what I share because I know that there are other people out there like me who feel this way or this resonates with them in a certain capacity. And they might gravitate towards it and they might reach out for support or help or to be heard or whatever the case is. And that's why I do it. And to be able to share your true beliefs publicly on social media, I think you're going to see that trend increase. I think more and more people are going to do it. I think the more people that start to put their own face, their own opinion, not sharing other people's stuff. That's noise at this point. You know, if you're one of those that just like copy and paste memes to get your political idea across, you're just falling in the noise category. It's when you actually show up and you put your flag in the ground and you say, this is what I believe and why. You're going to see more people gravitate towards that, because I think people are going to start to find out that the world doesn't end. Sure, you might catch flack. You're going to catch smoke. You're going to catch smoke no matter what. If you don't do anything, people are going to tell you that you need to do more. If you do too much, they're going to tell you to do less. It's just the nature of the beast. If you start coming up and you share your story, people are going to tell you that you're a narcissist, that you're conceited, that you're this, that you're that, all this other crap. But that's why like being sovereign is so important and who you are. And I think as you see as people start to express themselves more and they start to tell their truths more, they're going to realize that, it's okay. It is safe to do that. It's an unknown, but it becomes safe. And then all of a sudden, when people, for me at least, it's the DMs. It's all the DMs that I get DMs now almost daily of people reaching out to me like, hey, I saw this and I'm struggling with my family, or I'm struggling with finance, or I'm struggling with business, or I'm struggling with, all these different facets, alcohol, drug abuse. And it's not that I don't solve their problems, but I give them someone that can relate, and I give them someone that they can talk to and confide in. And they're all like 9 times out of 10, they're strangers. I've never met these people ever in my life, and they're reaching out to me. And like that to me is the driving factor. And like going back to that capacity conversation, it's part of that capacity. I think like as you create capacity for yourself and your family and your immediate circle, and you have capacity there and expands out, then you start having capacity for others. And to me, that's where like the soul gets pulled to. And so going back to like the original conversation, consistencies and all this other stuff, like I've realized the drum that I beat is that we all have the power to create our own realities, and suffering is part of that. So building that capacity out, knowing that I have that's where I stand, that's the drum that I beat on, and that my mission is not to sell courses. My mission is not to sell my business or any of this stuff. That's why I don't talk about it that much. My mission is just simply to put my story out there and in hopes that it does help people. And that in itself inspires me, right? Like, and that, like, it feels good to help other people without any expectation of anything coming back to you from them. And I think like that's where, but that comes from you sharing your truths, your beliefs, like what it is that makes you tick, what it is that brought you to the place that you're at. And so I think you're going to see that trend grow is the bottom line, man. At least that's been my perspective. Even in the business world, you're seeing more and more of this personal brand stuff coming out in the business world, because people realize like doing business, buying from somebody, especially services, like they're believing in you. They're buying you. They're buying you. They're buying people.
Yeah.
They're not buying the thing,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the impact that you make, man, I could tell you that's something that kind of keeps me going when days are like tough. When I first started like doing social media, and this was before I even started like building anything around it, where I was actually making content to make content. And when I first started, it was kind of for like the audience, right? To amuse them and entertain them. And then I got kind of burned out. I was like trying to make content for them, but I kept consistently like changing it up and just kept researching or just kept getting the feedback. And for me, the thing that can't be measured whether it's like you're doing like social media content, is the amount of impact that you make. Like the DMs, the messages, when I have conversations, like, off social media on like phone calls or meet people for like just for like a meetup. It's just like what they tell you about what they hear and how they run their story, and they kind of improve themselves uh through your story, and it gives them a permission to be more of themselves. That makes me feel really good too. I'm sure you felt that, or just say, hey, because of you, you 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 helped me start the podcast, or you helped me start working out, or putting myself out there more, or felt motivated. Like, I get those conversations, and it's what keeps me. I guess I get paid. I get paid in that. But there was a moment where I was doing a lot of that for like validation. But when you do the inner work and start to really realize like the real deeper why, or why you do things, is so important, in just being consistent and disciplined and making the greater impact that you want. And you shared a lot. We keep our podcast to about like an hour, but I do have a few things that I do want to share with you, so you could give me some feedback on how we kind of expand this season. So we're at episode 78 right now. So I want to do 22 this season, 22, so I can hit 100 milestone, and I want to do a big celebration at the 100 milestone. But the guests, the new updates that we have, I want to tell everybody what the updates that we have for the Monoflow podcast. We have a new intro. As you guys see, starting this podcast, I have a new little introduction. We're gonna be doing less commercials, of course, higher quality videos with me like bouncing around, and less of me talking, more of my guests being thoughtful and with my questions, and learning to be a better podcast host. That's what I'm really focusing on, and more of this mustache here.
Yeah, buddy.
So all the guys that I have on there, I was like, you must have a mustache. I'm just kidding. It's just a recommendation. It's a recommendation. And of course, more meaningful conversations. And I do want to have like a running theme for every podcast as well too. You shared a lot. You also shared quotes, favorite quotes, and I'm trying to figure out one theme that I could tie in with the podcast, the Modern Flow podcast, with flow, being higher states of consciousness, being in the zone. And the theme, one conversation could change anything. I want to ask them one question at the end of the podcast that, similar to like what Lewis House does. He asks them, like, if you died, if you have tomorrow's your last day on earth, you lost everything, what's one thing that you would like leave, whether it be like a quote or something like that? I do want to develop something like that. I'm not sure if you have any insights. Of course you do. You're Danny.
I mean, I think you got to think about your goal of like who you're talking to and why, right? And so I think you could take it, like you said, in a couple different directions. One of the things that I've kind of discovered recently for like just my own personal social media and like what I've been sharing is that I'm reaching a lot more 30-year-old men. And in general, like if you follow my type of content, it probably makes sense, right? But what I realized is that it's ironic that that's my demographic that I'm starting to gravitate towards, because back in my snowboarding coaching time, like it was around that, it was about a 10-year split of folks that I was coaching. But it was also, I think there's this generation coming up, like as you enter into your 30s, where there is this like huge societal shift around who you are. So for me, it's like, what's the best advice you could give a 30-year-old man? Like that's me talking personally, right? Something that you wish you knew 10 years ago, or letters to my like previous self. Like that's been kind of my ongoing theme. But I don't know if that helps you or not, but like what I would think in terms of that flow state, and the modern flow. And if like, you know, one conversation changes everything, I mean, it might even just be that, Samnang. Like, what is one conversation that you can identify that's changed everything for you?
Okay, I love it. That's why we brought you here on this podcast, Danny. Did you hear that? Did you guys just hear that? So the last question of the podcast is, what is one conversation that changed everything with you?
I knew that was going to come back at me and I wasn't prepared for it. One conversation that's changed everything with me. Honestly, if I'm being totally honest, it was in December of 2022. And it was with my best friend, Will Stonner, Will Coons. And he came out to visit my family. And at that time, I was a chief growth officer for this tech firm. I was back when I was an alcoholic. I was 185 pounds. I was drinking so much that my eyes were turning yellow. I was like literally going jaundice. And we were sitting down for dinner. I had had 2 martinis prior to the dinner coming out. I had a glass of wine during the dinner at this restaurant, and then I ordered a like old fashioned at the end of dinner. And he looked at me and he was like, "Dan, you're killing yourself. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're literally killing yourself with booze." And that conversation literally changed everything for me, because at that moment, I had known that I had been drinking too much, but I tried to normalize it. I tried to rationalize it. I tried to play it off as if everybody drinks like me, when they don't. And I kind of opened up to him and I was like, you know, I've always thought about counting my shots, like treating like a beer as a shot, you know, whatever, counting my drinks. And that was the outcome of that conversation, is I started counting my drinks. And that led me down the path of everything else. Like, it was, he pulled, like, that conversation pulled me out of this fantasy world that I had created when I was intoxicated and I was escaping everything, because in there my life felt pretty good, but when I was sober, my life was miserable. So it was, that conversation was kind of the pivotal moment for me that changed everything. And so I guess the moral of the story is like, he's obviously a really great friend even to this day. And he's one of those human beings that genuinely wants to see me win without any expectation coming back to him. So keep those people close to you. If you have people like that give you that harsh truth, your harsh realities, those hard conversations, the ones that you don't want to show up to, the ones that you can't really answer to, the ones that you don't have an excuse for, and they're pulling at you and they're trying to nudge you. That was it for me, man.
Yeah.
So,
man, I appreciate you sharing. One conversation can change everything. Our conversation that we had about 1.5 or 2 years ago on the Zoom call has led us to here being the first or second guest or first guest of season 4. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on and showing us how to podcast, express yourself authentically, and do it in your way. You know, I think, you know, the authenticity of the conversation and having people just to speak their truth and have a space to share their story. And I love how you said that everyone has a story. And that's what we want with this podcast. Is I've spoken to many people. I've had people that I'm interviewing or just kind of having discussions for to be future guests of this podcast. And they have so many inspiring stories, giving people the ability to have space to share what they're struggling and what they work through. I feel is a personal, powerful experience for the guests and the host, myself, and also the people that listen. I hope the tone of this season is powerful. That's what I want to say for everybody that's listening, is being honest and vulnerable and doing the inner work. Really, sometimes it feels like it's not going anywhere. I've gotten to a point when I first started podcasting and doing my inner work and my inner healing, I didn't feel like it was doing anything. It wasn't showing. I wasn't seeing it in real life. I wasn't seeing it come up in, to manifestation. But the longer and more consistent I've been doing it, the inner work, it's become easier, and it's become like a natural part of my life to be able to help people, hold space for people, and share that story and authentic conversations that could change everything. But I want to leave it to you. If you want to close out the show, if you have any else you want to share, promote, I always leave some space at the end of the podcast for my guests.
I mean, I think my closing message is like, Samnang, you're a spitting example of this. I mean, the more you just do, the more action you take, the more you just say you're going to do something, step up and do it and stay consistent in that, the more you start to actually create your reality. And to anybody that's listening, you have everything that you need right now to start it. It just requires you, like, I'll leave you with this. If you believed that everything that your dream was inevitable, it was 100% going to happen, you would execute on it. So the problem isn't you doing it. The problem is it starts here with that belief in yourself. Tune out the narratives and realize that you have exactly what it takes, and you need to go through exactly what you need to go through, but you will in fact create it, and go create your own realities.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Danny. All right, we're going to close out the show with a clap. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you again, Danny.
Yep.